Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Rich Doc Poor Doc. And today we wanted to just have Kenji and I actually sit down and talk a little bit about what it means to be rich to us. And to get the activity started, we actually each created a list of what it means to be rich in our minds, and we're going to compare and contrast and have a little bit of a discussion. And so our goal is by the end of this podcast, you'll have a little bit more understanding of maybe what you think it means to be rich and what it means to live a rich lifestyle, and have an idea about maybe there's some things you want to change in your life, maybe there's some things going well, but hopefully this gives you some ideas. So with that being said, maybe Kenji, you want to go first? What's the first thing on your list of what it means to be rich?
Sure. So I think, the traditional definition of rich is, I think, having money. And so for me, number one on the list is money. But with that said, I think the way I like to think about money is that, you have certain fixed costs, costs that, whether it's your rent, food, the things that meet your basic needs. And the way I think about money is I'm not talking about a huge amount of money, right? I'm talking about enough money to cover those fixed costs, those basic needs, and then a little bit more than that, so that you can actually go out and do some things. But I think money is definitely, for me, the number one criteria for being rich. But again, I'm not talking about insane amounts of money. I'm talking about more modest amounts of money.
Interesting, because I had money on my list. But I can't say that I rated my list, but it is actually, if you put it, just in the order that I put it down on my paper, it was number 3. And if I was going to define the amount of money that it takes to be rich, I would say it's grossly in excess of what you need to survive. So I think that, it's not my number one criteria for being rich, but it sounds like my sense is that it's way more than what you think being rich takes in terms of money.
Yeah, it just comes back to the, do you need money to be happy, right? And so like I'm equating, rich as in rich life, not just like rich, just objectively, money-wise. I think, there are, we hear stories all the time about, billionaires that are not happy in life, right? And they're objectively rich in terms of money, or they objectively have a lot of money, but I wouldn't necessarily say that they're rich. And therefore, I think, and I'm not saying it's like, let's say that your basic needs can be covered with, 75,000, let's say, I'm not talking about then saying 100 million, is, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, okay, maybe if you're making, let's say, passive income of 150, 250, somewhere in there, where your basic needs are easily met with that number. And then on top of that, you have some, extra money for vacations, for, taking time off, whatever it is, right? To enjoy kind of, the little pleasures in life. And that's the other thing about it, right? Is that, the little pleasures, in life don't cost a lot, right? I mean, it's just, I was just sitting outside in the sun, and that was amazing, right? And or where I love just like sitting down and reading a book, right? None of those things cost much money, if anything. And so that's why I don't think that, for me, rich doesn't mean, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, that's something definitely that I remember that we heard at a conference even a couple months ago, was that being rich is about taking those little experiences in life, just the little tiny ones that aren't even that big, and extracting the ultimate joy out of them, right? Instead of just letting them pass you by, because there are all these beautiful experiences happening around us all the time that we ignore, or we just walk through and we don't even notice. And that person that was, giving that conference at the time said, that's what it means to be rich, is extracting all the joy you can out of each little opportunity.
Right. And I think, that along those lines, we always talk about celebrating, right? I don't think we celebrate enough. And so I think we need to celebrate all those moments, and kind of, even if it's the smallest thing, you celebrate, right? And I definitely don't do that enough. I'd like to do that more. and even the big things, I can think back and say, when we've had, huge kind of, windfalls or successes, we did, it was like we went out to dinner and that was about it. So, we didn't, have this big celebration. I think that's what we need to do, and we need to do a better job of that. But if we did celebrate all those small moments of victory, of positives, whatever it is, then I think we would feel a lot more rich.
Yeah, and so we both agree money is on there.
Yeah, we disagree on the degree, so that's fine.
Right.
Okay.
And what's interesting too is this actually harkens me back to a conversation we had just a couple months ago, which is people can have exactly the same amount of money, like we share the same amount of money, but we can have different views of what stresses us out about money, right? And in that case, when I thought about what creates money stress for me, it was spending money unnecessarily. And so that could be even like, $50 that was unnecessarily spent was going to stress me out. Whereas that doesn't necessarily stress out Kenji at all. In fact, he's more stressed out about amounts of money. And then our responses to dealing with that stress was very, very different, right? Mine was, I like to think about abundance and realize that amount of money really doesn't matter, and tell people what yours was. So I thought that was very interesting too. Do you remember?
No, I don't.
It was work harder, right? It was like, when I feel stressed about money, I'm going to work harder, right? And so two people with the same amount of money objectively have totally different experiences when they have stress about money, and totally different ways that they handle that stress.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that makes sense, that money for us it's a totally different, level in our minds about what makes a rich doc.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll go second.
Okay.
So what I had in here was time. So did you have that on your list as well?
Yeah, no, certainly I had time. That was a little lower down on my list. But
I love that you ordered it and I didn't. I just randomly
there you go, exactly. Yeah, so there's another difference, right? Exactly.
So how do you define being rich in your time?
Well, I think it's having kind of freedom of utilizing that time in the way that you want, and so it would just be, it's the little luxuries, right? It's being able to go to a movie on a weekday, right, during the middle of the day when everybody else is working, right? It's being able to go going hiking again during the middle of the week when everybody's working, not on the weekend when it's super crowded and you can hardly kind of go on a trail without bumping into a bunch of people. So, I think, it's just the freedom of time, of being able to pick up and go and take off and go on vacation.
For me, it's actually about control, I think is what you're saying.
Sure.
It's about controlling your own time. So for me, when I think about time wealth, it's actually not waking up with an alarm clock.
Sure.
That's a big deal to me. And, I've had a number of weeks off from work right now. And so we've been waking up just whenever we wake up. And that's a really amazing thing. I think that's a pure luxury to me. So that to me is time richness, is richness is being able to control your time, determine when you wake up, determine when you do whatever activity. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah. I probably put it a little bit lower down because I thought that, that money, gives you freedom. And so therefore I kind of said, well, it's part of it, but it wasn't necessarily, kind of a primary driver, I guess.
Right. And money also gives you time in a way, right? Because money allows you to hire people to do some of the work that you would have done before. And now you get that time chunk back. And so in that way, money does buy time. So you could argue that actually the money part is actually more important than the time. I could see that.
Yeah.
And again, I didn't order mine, but I think that's really, that makes sense, that order. One thing I have on here is choice, right? And that's, again, the same. I don't know if that showed up on yours.
No,
but this was an interesting one for me, because what I was thinking when I wrote it down is like, when you're rich, you have choices. You can choose to spend your time however you want. You can choose to be anywhere you want. You can choose to spend, have whatever things you want. And so I thought, well, that gives you choice. But then when I was thinking a little bit deeper about it, I've actually came to the decision that choice is all in your mind, right?
Yeah.
You can, because there are a lot of things that you can't control with money, right? So let's, for example, say you can have a ton of money, but one of your family members gets sick, right? So that wasn't something you could control with the money. But if you decide in your mind to think about it a little bit differently, right? Your choice is that you can act in the way that you determine you want to act. And that actually has nothing to do with money.
Right. Yeah. Choice to me seems more like almost like a situation where you don't have control and you're trying to seek control. So I look at that more as it's more about mindset and control. Like it's almost like whatever comes your way, right? Even though you might not have that choice, right, of what comes your way, it's how you react to that, right? And so we've both like the book called Surrender Experiment, right? Mm-hmm. Where this gentleman is being sued, and instead of kind of getting stressed about it, he just surrendered to it and kind of said, okay, this is happening, and he actually was actually fairly peaceful throughout that whole process. And so it's like, yeah, no matter what is thrown your way, it's all about kind of how you look at it. What we always try to practice is life is happening for us. And truly, we've had this situation happen just very recently in our real estate where there was a situation where a transaction didn't go well, and actually delayed the closing of it. And it turned out that at the end of it, everything turned out better for us because of that delay. And I remember at the time we had some friends staying with us, and they were all like feeling sorry for us, and we were, I guess maybe initially kind of a little bit shocked and kind of a little bit angry as well. And then ultimately, it was kind of like, hey, life's happening for us. And then literally 3 months later, when we now look back, we're like, wow, truly life really was happening for us. And we're so glad that we handled it the way we did. And right. So, instead of being miserable for 3 months, we were like, yeah, no, we're going to get through this and it's going to be even better. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, that to me is rich. I mean, if you can live, through life, right. If you can kind of control your mind, you can be rich for sure.
Right. And that actually goes back to the same thing because, that experience for me, I started to get stressed out about the money, the money we were going to lose as part of that falling apart. And then, so of course that's my anxiety part of the money. And then I got into my mind and said, hey, it's just money. Like nobody's dying in my family, like it's money. Money can be earned back, and we have the skills and we have the knowledge now to be able to earn money through real estate. And I truly believe that if we lost it all tomorrow, we could earn it right back because we have those skills and we know how to do it. And so in my mind, it was like, you know what, this is just money. I'm going to be able to earn it back. And that kind of brought a peacefulness to me. And I remember we were actually staying overnight at a hotel, like as a little retreat for ourselves when everything went down on December 31st. And I remember us going to breakfast and being like, oh my gosh, thank goodness we've done all this mindset work to be able to calm our minds and not to argue with the reality and cause ourselves to suffer in that sort of situation just about money. So that was a big deal to us. Yeah. So a lot of this podcast, we will be talking about mindset because it underlies everything, and being successful and being rich is really a lot about your mindset. So
yeah, I love that. I mean, the in terms of mindset, it's actually you're rich if you're able to. If you're confident that you're going to be able to make that money back, right? That's truly rich, right? If you're rich in your mind, you can actually make it a reality, right? And so certainly for us, we feel that way because we've educated ourselves. That's number one. So we have that confidence, right? We know the path to wealth, right? To money. And we're just talking about money right now, right? So like we're talking about losing money and then getting it back. But again, it's not just about money. So for us, I think, we have, the good mindset, in terms of, how we make money, but also even if we don't have money, we also feel rich in our head, right? We feel like, okay, we can create that time, we can create that, that freedom, right? And so I think there's a lot of aspects to, to rich, certainly.
And also you could see that certain people are extremely rich in money,
right?
But they're anxious that they're going to lose it, right?
Right.
And they don't feel that sort of confidence, and they haven't worked on their mindset at all. And so they could have, $1 billion and still be anxious and scared about money and not be truly rich, right? Because they don't have that quality of life. And actually that was probably the biggest one I had down here for myself. I have a couple more, but one was fulfillment. And that is about, not really about money, really. It's about contribution, and you can certainly contribute time, but I think there's also something to be said for being able to contribute finances and money to the causes that you feel strongly about and being able to make a change. And so I think that's part of richness, is actually having that ability to contribute financially to those big programs and organizations that you believe in. So I put fulfillment in here because that does include not only finances, but it also includes the having the confidence to know that you're not going to be anxious and thinking about money all the time too.
Yeah, I think for the people out there that, are striving for financial freedom, this is a really important one, because, you could pursue, financial freedom and put your head down, really focus on it. But I'll tell you, when you get there, one of the things that you may realize, and this happened to us when we achieved financial freedom, was that it just wasn't enough, right? Just reaching that financial freedom point wasn't, didn't make us feel, rich. What I think really made us feel rich was when we started to contribute, right? When we started thinking about, okay, so how can we, improve other people's lives? And the way we ended up doing it was, well, we said, okay, we want to help other people achieve, financial freedom through real estate. And that's kind of how we decided. That's how we decided that we were going to contribute. Of course, we contributed in other ways, but that was kind of, something that kind of drove us. We wake up in the morning, invigorated, excited, and again, that's it. We're not working because we have to. We're working because we want to, right? It's a very, very big difference in terms of mindset. So
people ask us that. They say, you're semi-retired, why are you even doing this blog at all, right? Because it's fulfilling. It's our contribution, both in time, because we spend so much time with our readers and helping our students, but then it's going to be our contribution in a big way with finances too, with the proceeds of the blog helping to finance the causes we believe in. So so that's fulfillment was on my list. I have two more things on my list. I don't know if you want to tackle one of yours.
Yeah, sure. So I certainly agree with fulfillment and contribution. I kind of put that under mindset, but for me, the other big one is relationships, right? And so, if you don't have good relationships, whether it's with your spouse, your children, your parents, I think it's really hard to kind of say, there's a rich person, right? So even from the outside, when you're looking at somebody and they don't have any good relationships,
Ebenezer Scrooge, right?
Right. That's true. Yeah, it's kind of a Scrooge situation. So I think that having those good relationships is really important for having a rich life, for sure.
Yeah, and I would actually say, when we even talked about this like in the last week, is the most important relationship in our business is actually us. Because ultimately, if our marriage and our relationship, if we take it for granted, if we don't, care for it, if we don't prioritize it and make space for it, then actually the whole business and the whole finances, everything falls apart, right? If you have a divorce, or if you're not functioning because you're so distracted because your relationship is on the rocks. And so ultimately, I didn't put mine in order, but when I did come up with the word relationships on my list, I actually put it at the top of my, on the top, because I think that that's actually the most important thing. And I think a lot about childhood education and like what I wish our kids were learning in school when they get to school is it's relationships, how to have successful relationships, and it's, how to take care of the finances and understand finances. And then it's my next one, which is health. How to be healthy, how to live, how to feed your body appropriately to what it needs, and how to stay active and exercise and things like that. So you have the strength to then show up in an energetic state and do your work and show up in your relationship the way you want to, with a lot of energy and not just exhausted.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about health, but you said that you put relationships at the top. So I would actually disagree with that, because at the end of the day, I mean, you can have amazing relationships and not have money in the bank, right? So I still feel like when it comes to just rich objectively, that has to absolutely come with a financial freedom or enough money in the bank, right? Because it takes away a lot of stress. But also, I think, again, it's that mindset that, you have to be rich in mindset to be able to achieve those kind of that income, or that passive income, right? So you have to educate yourself, right? You have to prepare yourself. I do think you have to, work hard at it, right? And unless you have that discipline, that mindset, and think about it. I mean, how many relationships are destroyed by not having enough money, right? And so that's why I do think that there's a little bit of a dependency. I think you need to have, that money. And again, I'm not saying that relationships aren't important. I'm just saying that I really think that, the money part, and again, I'm not talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm talking about having enough money to pay your fixed costs, plus having a little bit more, so you can kind of go out and enjoy. But so I do think that you need to have that level at least of money, and then certainly relationships, I agree, are pretty high up there.
Yeah, and I'm not going to disagree with anything that you said, but I will say that you said one thing that you did say was a lot of relationships are destroyed over money, and that's completely true. But I don't think it actually has to be that way. I think if people had the right mindsets, they would be able to catch themselves when they start to destroy their relationship out of money and be able to change the path. So I think I agree with you. It's a reality of the situation. But I do think that it's something that probably with everyone doing a lot of mindset work could be avoided more frequently.
True. Yeah. I just worry that, if you don't have that mindset that if you don't think about rich as money, then, you don't work at it. Right. That's the kind of the risk, is that, that if you don't, and I do think you do have to, right? Like what we do in our real estate courses, and we always teach people, it's like we're teaching people how to fish. We're not fishing for them, right? We're not doing the work for them. And and I don't have anything against passive investments. I think, having somebody else, a professional do it if you trust them and all that, that's great. But, there's so many situations where, you rely on somebody else to do it that, you lose out, right? Or you don't get the returns that you want, right? But when you seize control, you take control yourself, you can get those much higher returns. And so,
well, and it also takes away your anxiety. So we talked a lot about like somebody being extremely wealthy, but having some anxiety that they could lose it all, right? And not being fulfilled because they have that anxiety. If you can earn your own money and you know how to do it, then you don't have that level of anxiety. So if you just hand off your money to other people and never get those skills, I think that that's actually going to set you up for feeling that anxiousness that you could lose everything.
Right, right. Yeah. And let's talk about health. I mean, I do think that health is extremely important. And I think one of the things that, we hear is that, once you get sick, right, that's all you're focused on. You're not focused on anything else, right?
Right. How does it go? It's like people sacrifice their health, their whole lives to get money. And then they spend all their money to try to regain their health that they've destroyed through the process of getting money, right? Right.
So absolutely. So, some of this has to do with, I was going to say some of it has to do with time, but actually it's just a priority, right? Mm-hmm. You have to make your health a priority. You have to make exercise a priority. You have to make, getting out in nature and getting some sun, a priority, right? All that's extremely important. And so, yeah, for sure. I think, taking care of your health, having good health, right? That absolutely is a I think almost the foundation of rich is you have to have good health, because if you don't, then that's the only thing you're focused on is how do you get better? And so, yeah.
Did you have anything else on your list? Or
Nope,
was that
that's
it?
That's
Okay,
it for
that
me.
was it for me too.
All right.
Hopefully that gave you guys some ideas. If you want to subscribe to our podcast to make sure you get every single episode, just make sure you do that. And then if you have any comments about things you think we missed or any comments about what we talked about, feel free to also, send us a message on Semi-Retired MD, and we'll try to get back to you.
All right. Thank you so much.